Did Gilbert Burns just admit that for the past few years, fans have been overrating his grappling? Not exactly, but what he did say when asked by Laura Sanko about his improvements leading up to his fight with Jorge Masvidal is that his grappling left a lot to be desired. And for the past year, I've been saying that Gilbert Burns, despite being the big swinging dick of the jiu-jitsu community and being really good overall on the ground, leaves a lot to be desired. And I want you guys to watch this clip from Gilbert Burns because I think that comments from people like me have actually got to him a little bit and motivated him to start getting better at his weaknesses. Listen to this clip.
And you talked about going back to the bread and butter, like really leaning back into your jiu-jitsu, but you also talked about training a lot of ground and pound. What made you want to do that?
What made me want to do that was the talks after the fight with Wonderboy. You know, I think it dominated him. I didn't like the talks after the fight. You know, so he didn't do enough. He just hugged me, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna change that. And I put a lot of emphasis on my ground and pound. I think it got a lot better on my control, on my offensive ground and pound, and then being aggressive, looking for the finish. And yeah, I think my wrestling got better, my grappling offensive got better, my striking got better, and I'm looking forward to a dominate.
What I really like from this clip is that number one, Gilbert Burns is humble enough to admit to himself that when he hears criticism, it's not always untrue. And on top of that, when you can accept that you're not perfect and that you're not infallible, you can learn. You can learn from your mistakes. You could try to get better at things that are not necessarily all the way there yet. And I've said for the past year, if this were a video game, Gilbert Burns' grappling would be really good, but it wouldn't be maxed out everywhere. And people have taken my words out of context big time. I've said things like, this man is amazing on the ground when it comes to his ability to put himself in a dominant position, his ability to not be in danger like we saw in the Khamzat Chimaev fight, like we saw with the Damian Maia fight where he got his back taken as well and he was able to just get out of there pretty easily. But when it comes to his ground and pound and his submission offense, if this were a video game, not that amazing. And people will look at that statement like they have throughout the past year, because I've taken so much flack from this, and they've said, bro, you're hating on him. You said that Gilbert Burns sucks at jiu-jitsu. Look at what he just did to Neil Magny. You said he was ass. Yeah, because he needed to get better with his submission offense and his ground and pound, and the man just came out here today and admitted that he had holes in his game, specifically in regards to mounting up offense on the ground. And he said that the comments from people like me after the Wonderboy fight, in which I've went out here on record to say that he looked like he was holding on for dear life, those are the comments that motivated him to improve in the ability to hurt people on the ground, to finish people on the ground. And the very next fight for Gilbert Burns was Khamzat Chimaev, and we didn't really see a lot in that fight because, again, you know, you're just not going to take Khamzat down and submit him like that. But Gilbert Burns showed that he was not going to put himself in danger on the ground either, which was really impressive. But after that, he fights Neil Magny and submits him in the first round, takes him down, slams him, dominates him, and then gets him with a head and arm triangle. So we're looking at a guy that is improving at the age of 36 because he is, in part, humble enough to admit that he still has to get better in certain areas, even though, as I said earlier, he's the big swinging dick of the jiu-jitsu community, multiple-time ADCC champ, and a lot of people have been telling me for the past year that because I've critiqued this man, because, you know, he, again, has a lot of jiu-jitsu credentials, I'm a hater. And, you know, you have no idea what you're talking about. You don't understand the idiosyncrasies and all the little details. The man just told you himself that he, in fact, wasn't all that great in certain areas on the ground. And again, this is a victory lap for me. And you know what? I'm taking credit for Gilbert Burns submitting Neil Magny. I'm just playing, of course. But Gilbert Burns, this just proves that he is a savage, because the best thing you can do is continue to learn. That is the number one thing you can do as a person in general, especially when you're a fighter. You have to continue to learn. The moment you tell yourself that you're perfect, or like we've seen with Israel Adesanya all week, well, I always dominate this guy, and, you know, I don't need to change anything on the feet. Like, well, that's not a good mindset. We've seen guys use that mindset and then they get beat pretty badly, like Max Holloway going into the trilogy with Alexander Volkanovski. He went on a world tour before that third fight saying that everyone knows I won that fight. Volk and his team just know how to play the system, and that's it. I'm actually the better fighter, and I don't need to change anything. Well, that's what got you to get your ass kicked. You didn't make any improvements. Whereas the best Holloway looked against Volkanovski was in that second fight with him because he knew he had to make some serious improvements. And with, this guy Gilbert Burns, man, I said he's going to 30-27 Jorge Masvidal. I said he's going to beat him pretty dominantly by decision. You know what? I don't think it's going to be rabbit punches this time. This is why I love Gilbert Burns, man. He's such a hard worker. He's so ambitious, and he's real, bro. I think he's going to go out there and beat Masvidal's ass on the ground and maybe submit him. I'm starting to lean towards a submission. I know I don't want to change my pick last second, but I picked him to win either way. I just said it was going to be a dominant decision. You know what? I think Gilbert Burns might finish Jorge Masvidal. Because you take a guy with those jiu-jitsu credentials who wasn't perfect in the MMA realm of grappling, and you allow him to hone in on his ability to hurt people down there where he's already perfect everywhere else, that's a dangerous man. And we've seen Jorge not do so well against grapplers. And, Jorge didn't get submitted by a guy in Damian Maia back in the day when he had his back taken. But you know what? Gilbert Burns, I think he might be able to go out there and submit the oldest, most washed up version of Jorge Masvidal we've ever seen. What do you guys think of these comments? Again, like, he's out here telling us that I needed to get better at this shit, that I needed to improve. And that is a mentality that has to be regarded in a high way. Because again, most fighters are afraid to come out here and say those things. And a lot of athletes, if everyone on earth were to just glaze them all the time and constantly say, we can't critique them, we don't compete, or I'm not a fighter, I can't say anything, well, then these guys are going to think that they're gods and they're not going to actually continue to improve. So I just wanted to make a video about this because I love that statement from Gilbert Burns. It fired me up. I made my prediction video for the full card and the Gilbert Burns fight before seeing that interview. That interview, the clip that I showed earlier, was from the weigh-in show that happened this morning. It was right after Gilbert weighed in. Laura Sanko asking him, you were alluding to this in another interview about how you wanted to improve with your ground and pound and your ability to hurt people and finish people. And Gilbert Burns comes out with a perfect statement. So, you know what? I'm actually leaning towards Gilbert Burns by submission now. That's right. I actually am after these comments. Because, again, I was saying 30-27, dominant decision. But you know what? Fuck it. I think Gilbert Burns has a good chance to get a submission, given that he has been working really hard at trying to finish people. So, yeah, you're allowed to critique people, guys. Just because someone is phenomenal on the ground does not mean that they're perfect. It does not mean that everyone who's critiquing them in that area is automatically hating. I think that's such a shallow, immature mindset. Alex Pereira is a phenomenal kickboxer. He has holes in his game. The guy doesn't have the best head movement. I hope you enjoyed this video. What did you think of these comments from Gilbert Burns? Again, I was fired up when I heard them because I've been saying these things for a long time, but at the same time, I'm also picking the guy, and that makes me more confident in my pick. So if you're picking Gilbert Burns, I'm sure that you're more confident than ever now as well. Until next time.